Hello there, everyone. Welcome to GamePoints episode 213. Your weekly get together. We talk about recent gaming news. I'm, as always, your host, Stephen Brown. Joining me today is
David.
Tonight, David. We get our first look at PlayStation 5's new controller, and we'll give our opinions on why it sucks. We'll go over all these new Resident Evil rumors, and we'll talk a wee bit about today's Inside Xbox. But first, I want everyone here to know that this is an audience interactive podcast, meaning if you're watching us here live at Tuesday at 8 p.m. over at Twitch TV/GamePoints, you can feel free to join the conversation live. If you're watching us later over at YouTube.com/GamePointsPC, feel free to join the conversation in the comments down below. Either way, I want to know what your opinions are on the topics we're covering tonight. With any questions, comments, concerns, etc., just try to keep it germane to the conversation. David.
Yes.
Before I dig deep into any of these stories, I want to tell you about a little game that both you and I have been playing over the weekend that I just discovered.
You're welcome.
Called Satisfactory. And yes, thank you very much for introducing it to me.
Hey, dude. Satisfactory is amazing. It's been on Epic for a long time in early access. It's still in early access, but they just had another update come out, so I went back to it and somehow dragged you in as well.
Yeah, it's definitely... I've been looking for something like this for a while, which is why I've been playing things like City Skylines and Anno lately. Nothing really scratched that itch until now.
Yeah, it's one of those weird sim barrier life. Just use this as a total zen relax game as you slowly work to build machinery that makes yourself obsolete. And it's very satisfying. Even if you screw it up, it's great.
It is in early access. It is Epic exclusive, I believe, right now.
For now.
It'll probably come over to Steam eventually, but keep those things in mind in case you have issues with that. But
I love it. It's just on sale, that's why.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I've been playing the hell out of it. I actually was actively streaming it till about 2 or 2:30 last night.
Dude, I've been up way too late playing that game.
Yeah, it's about 2.5 hours past when I normally stream, so I'm definitely on that boat. We'll be seeing more of that soon.
I see conveyor belts in my dreams.
I'm like obsessed with like capping out productivity on it too. I get pissed if it's running at like 80%.
Oh yeah,
I start looking for where the problem is. David,
I have different problems.
I'm sure we could spend like a whole hour talking about this goddamn game, which is occupying both our times. But we have actually some interesting and relatively new news to talk about on this show.
New news? We never have new news.
I know, it's always like 3 or 4 days old, but this is fresh off the presses, as it were, as of 5-6 hours ago.
Yep.
Sony finally revealed a little bit more about the PlayStation 5 besides some tech stuff. They actually showed off what their controller looks like.
Yep.
So,
it's from the US PlayStation blog.
I'm going to go ahead and bring up what this thing looks like out the gate so you all can see it. Oh, wrong thing. There we go. There we go.
Nailed it.
Right there. Nailed it. Let me introduce to you the DualSense, the new wireless game controller from PlayStation 5. Before we get into this, David, first of all, what is your first impression of what this looks like, and what do you think of that name?
It looks like a Razer Raiju PS4 controller that was only released in the UK because Sony of America would not allow them to release it in the US, and I actually liked the way the Raiju looked.
So are you into this? Is this something that you like? Do you think it's a positive step in the right direction?
The color scheme is abysmal.
I agree.
It's so bad. Like, it's horrible. It's very much like mid-2000s pretending to be future tech looking when you do that white and black mixture.
It's the Spider-Gwen controller. Add like a streak of pink in there, and there you go.
Dude, it just looks like the girl robot from WALL-E to me. Like, it's very much the Mad Cat / Nyko / little brother controller.
It looks like a toy. It does look like a toy.
Definitely. And the color scheme doesn't help. However, I have seen mock-ups of it in black, and it looks amazing if you just make the whole thing black.
I've seen someone like do the color paint like filler, and they just fill in the white parts of black. And you have to imagine that I'm going to keep this up for a bit longer, probably for a good chunk of this segment. You have to imagine that they're going to have multiple color options if they're doing this two-tone
100%.
style.
They have to. I mean,
David,
you can get the PS4 controller in a million different colors right now.
What's your opinion on thinking that this new PlayStation is going to be white?
Sounds great.
You're into a white console?
Yeah, white consoles look better than black consoles. They always have.
Okay.
That's a non-issue for me.
Okay. I literally do not have an opinion on that.
I bought the white PS2 Slim when it was available.
Okay.
I think they look nice.
Would you be fine if this entire controller was solid white then?
Yes.
It's specifically the two-tone coloration
The
that just looks
the
ass.
two-tone bothers me. Yeah.
I think I'd be fine with the two-tone if it was in different spots that were highlighted black, but this just looks weird. It looks like two separate controllers blended together.
Yeah, I almost wish they'd gone with like what the steel gray PS4 controllers look like, where it's kind of like a color on the front and then a different color on the back. I think that's a better look.
Yes, I kind of know what you're talking about. What do you think about the name DualSense with what they're putting into it? And we'll get into more details of exactly what's going into this thing here in a bit.
That's the funny part to me, is because to me, if you have a new name, then it's a completely different controller. And arguably it is. If you stuck this thing next to DualShocks 1 through 4, it is a step in a different direction. 100%. It does not follow in the footsteps of the previous DualShock controllers.
It is the first time I've seen a Sony redesign the controller this much since the actual analog sticks were slapped on the original PlayStation 1 controllers.
Exactly. Yeah, since we went from the hell was it even called? A PS1 pad? I don't know.
Yeah. It's been a long time coming that Sony's changed their controller up, for sure.
Yeah. Because, I mean, we had the 6-axis controller before we had the DualShock.
But they look identical, though. The only way you can tell them apart is their weight, and if it says 6-axis on one and DualShock on the other.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's definitely interesting to see them breaking from tradition as far as the shape of the controller goes.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice because you have a lot of people that, more than any brand identity or loyalty, just like controllers. And I know people that'll pick an Xbox or a PlayStation just based on the controller that they have. And if you're used to one thing, this controller is not as large as an Xbox controller, but you can see it's definitely bridging the gap of being a little more wider and having more to hold on to, as it were.
Which isn't a bad thing, I think, but now I fear change. So my first thing when I see this controller is naturally innate disgust. Because that's just me. I hate it when shit changes and I've been using it for 20 years. But
see, I just want to hold it. That's all that matters to me.
But I will say that the Xbox controller, which is right here, feels significantly better in my hand than any DualShock ever did.
Yeah, and that's what's funny is when I saw this, I immediately thought of the Razer controller that you can't get here. And I was like, man, I'm actually really excited because I've held that Razer controller. I know somebody at Razer. I like the way that controller feels. I just cannot get it in the US. So, and I don't really want to spend $160 on a controller, let's be real.
Yeah,
so that extra space, as a guy that has decently sized hands, I'm pretty excited about, actually.
Okay. So, what is going in this thing? Well, let's go ahead and read from the blog post itself. Once again, this is from Sony's official blog. Links will be provided in the description down below on the YouTube page. We wanted everyone in the PlayStation community to get a first look at the DualSense wireless controller, and hear our vision for how the new controller will captivate more of your senses as you interact with the virtual worlds and PS5 games. The features of the DualSense, along with PlayStation 5's Tempest 3D audio tech, will deliver a new feeling of immersion to players. David, what is Tempest 3D audio tech? Does that mean anything to you?
That was gone over in the Sony report, or whatever you want to call it. Talking about how they are trying to build the audio engine for the PS5 to do simulated surround sound on most speaker types.
So you don't have to have surround sound. It sounds like the technology that's in their wireless headset.
Sort of.
Okay.
But they're trying to make it work so that you can actually have directional audio come out of like a regular TV speaker, which is absurd to me because TV speakers are the worst fucking speakers in the world. My phone sounds better than my TV does.
Fair enough. Going off of the blog post. After thoughtful consideration, we've decided to keep much of what the gamers love about the DualShock 4 intact, while also adding new functionality and refining the design. Based on our discussions with developers, we concluded that a sense of touch within gameplay, much like audio, hasn't been a big focus for many games. We've had a great opportunity with PlayStation 5 to innovate by offering game creators the ability to explore how much they can heighten that feeling of immersion through our new controller. This is why we adapted haptic feedback, which adds a variety of powerful sensations you feel when you play, such as the slow grittiness of driving a car through mud. We also incorporated adaptive triggers into the L2 and R2 buttons of a DualSense, so you can truly feel tension in your actions, like when drawing a bow to shoot an arrow. So there's been a lot of hubbub about haptic feedback since the Switch came out.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's easy to dismiss it as just another rumble feature, but it is significantly more complex than just a spinning motor inside the controller.
That's very true. And it's a lot more directional, it's a lot more targeted, and it's much more interactive than the old spinning rotors used to be.
Yeah, you don't.
Rumble in the old controllers was low and high, and that's about it.
It's something you don't think about until you actually have it in your hands and compare it to like this. If you ever held the Joy-Cons in your hands and then compare its rumble to like the Xbox and PlayStation remote, then it's really apparent what the difference between having haptic feedback and not is.
Yeah, I mean having rumble on one side of the controller and not the other actually makes a pretty big difference for immersion.
Yeah. Also, it kind of makes me worried about how much this goddamn controller is going to cost because the Joy-Cons for the Switch, I keep on calling them remotes because I keep on calling the Switch a Wii. The Joy-Cons on the Switch are like $50 a pop, or 80 if you want both. Maybe they're 40 a pop.
I think it's $79 for two.
Yeah, that's fucking expensive.
Yeah, I fully imagine this to be a $70 controller. Okay. The current gen are all $60 controllers, which are ridiculous, but that's just where we are.
For technology that's been out for 5 years at this point, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to the PlayStation blog. For the buttons, you'll notice there's no longer a share button as we had with the DualShock 4. Don't worry, it's not going away. In fact, we've built upon the success of our industry first share button to bring you a new create button feature. Did you ever use that, by the way?
Fuck no.
No, I didn't either. I'd hit it accidentally.
Actually, I do. I use it several times for like screenshots or clips just to send to people that I'm like playing online with.
Okay.
Like if something cool happens. Okay. I mean, it's handy. It's funny.
Fair enough. DualShock also adds a built-in microphone array which enables players to easily chat with friends without a headset. So, David, I don't see this being a high-end microphone at all.
Cannot wait to hear everybody's TV playing the audio of the game that I'm already playing so that I can kind of hear them squeaky voice in the background when I'm playing online.
And the
sounds amazing.
Blog post does go on to say, don't use this as a long-term thing. You still want a headset. This is like an emergency use only kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
There's also some
it just means they're probably not going to ship it with the little headset microphone.
There's also some contention whether or not this even has a headset jack. Because people are looking at the pictures and they can't quite find one.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Going back to the article. Good.
I was going to say that the fact that it has a built-in microphone leads me to believe that they won't have any kind of pack-in headset because it does not have that capability, and they're going to push like the PS Gold or Platinum or whatever the hell the new version of their headset is.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
However, that does complicate PlayStation VR a little bit. Because PlayStation VR plugs into the controller, and they did say PlayStation VR will be compatible with the PlayStation
VR
5.
Plugs into the regular controller?
For audio, yeah. You have to take the headset. You have to actually plug a headset into a controller to get audio into your ears directly.
Oh, I didn't even realize.
Yeah, you have to wear.
So
like,
in
earbuds.
that case, it probably has to have an audio jack.
Yeah, you have to wear earbuds.
No.
Maybe you don't have to. No, I'm
either that or they're going to release some kind of wireless adapter. I don't know. That's weird.
Yeah, I don't understand how it's going to work. Traditionally, our base controllers have a single color. As you can see, we went a different direction this time around and decided on a two-tone design. Additionally, we changed the position of a light bulb to give it that extra pop. On DualShock 4, it sat on the top of the controller. Now it sits on each side of the touchpad, giving it a slightly larger look and feel. While on the topic of PlayStation VR, David, I believe that this is going to be related to that in some way, shape, or form.
Oh, those front light bars?
Yes, because I think it's going to position better with how your head is and how you're holding the controller.
Okay. That makes sense. I mean, it looks good. I have one of the newer DualShocks that has the light bar on the front. I like it. It's cool.
Yeah, so do I.
The light bar is... it doesn't really mean anything to me. It's neat, but I don't need it.
I think it was going to be originally used... The reason why it's on there, I think, is because it was really going to be used with that PlayStation Eye.
Yeah, it's the version of the light on the move.
Yeah, and they just took that and rolled it into PlayStation VR because the tech was already there.
Yeah, makes sense.
Finally, and the most importantly, it's supporting USB-C.
And it's rechargeable.
Yes, Microsoft.
Checkmate, Microsoft. This doesn't take no AA batteries. This controller wasn't made in 1994.
Overall, what do you think about this as a package and a controller?
Irrelevant until I hold it.
Irrelevant until you hold it. So you need to physically feel it in your hand.
I cannot. I'm not super picky. Just based on like a spec sheets of controllers. If it lets me play the damn game, sounds great. But I need to actually hold the thing and see if it's comfortable. Because if I don't like it, then guess what? I just won't play PS5 games, and I'll just keep using my old controller on my PC. You know, what are you gonna do?
No. Makes sense. Makes sense. That's one of the reasons why I don't like the Steam controller, for example. That thing feels too light.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Like, I could appreciate that they made that thing very, very light for everything that's in it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
that would
alien
almost
to me.
benefit from having a battery pack or batteries in it.
Yeah, I want to
based on how
tape some quarters to the back to kind of give it some heft.
Yeah.
That aside, that's still a controller. I am on it. I will say I'm kind of impressed Sony so dramatically. I say dramatically changed the shape of the controller, even though it's not really that different from a DualShock. But for a company that, as we said, has used the same template for their controller since PlayStation 1.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the light bar, you could have a PS1 through a PS4 controller all next to each other and probably not pick them out at first glance.
And the touchpad on a PlayStation 4, but it's all the same. If you were to like silhouette them, they would all look the same essentially. This one distinctively looks different.
Pretty neat. Very fancy.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see how that shakes out. And I do think that them revealing this is a direct response to how people received the Sony report.
Yeah, they just got to get something else out there.
Yeah, it's like, no, guys, we get that this is all about tech, but at this point, Microsoft has shown us the box, shown us the controller, given us idea what's going on. You have to do something else. And I think Sony is getting that message, which to me gives me a little bit of hope that they might kind of finally be realizing we need to actually be part of this console war to have a war.
Yeah, exactly.
We can't just ignore Microsoft anymore.
We need to actually pay attention and start showing off what our shit can do.
Right. While on the topic of Sony, David.
Oh, yeah, this is a fun one.
PlayStation delays The Last of Us 2 and Ironman VR indefinitely due to the COVID-19 virus.
Yep.
This is from their official Twitter. Sony Interactive Entertainment has made the difficult decision to delay the launch of The Last of Us Part 2 and Marvel's Iron Man VR until further notice. Logistically, the global crisis is preventing us from providing launch experience our players deserve. AKA, everyone's sick, so we don't have people in the factories to make the discs, so we're delaying it. At least that is what Sony says. Your initial thoughts, David?
I know a lot of people are really upset. I don't know. Last of Us 2 has been delayed, I think, a couple of times already.
I believe it's supposed to come out sometime last year.
That game will come out eventually. It'll probably be pretty fun. Iron Man VR, I don't give two shits about. Makes no difference to me. I forgot that it was even a video game. I think the cooler part of this story, though, is because there was obviously a bunch of huge backlash. People were really mad, like, oh, false advertising and screw you guys and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, fuck those people.
They have actually offered full refunds for anybody that pre-ordered either of those games.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So if you pre-order Last of Us 2 and you're like, screw your indefinitely thing, I want my money back. Okay, here, have your money back. Sorry.
Yeah, you'll give it to us eventually.
Yeah.
Because companies
literally can't have our devs working on this game. Video games are leaked every single where you look. We cannot send our employees home with source code to work on these video games at home like other companies can have at-home employees. It's not the same. A lot of these things are worked on secure servers. You have to worry about leaks. You have to worry about creation tools. You have to worry about all kinds of stuff. And it's difficult to have and I could be wrong. The Postal Service is a band that existed at one time, but it's harder to have a creative project when everybody's isolated away from each other. So, in my opinion,
a couple things. One, Sony is straight up saying this is not because the game has issues they need to take care of. They're saying it's a logistical reason. Yeah. And that tracks with what other things have been having. But that makes me wonder about Ghost of Tsushima, because that has not been delayed. Now, you would figure Last of Us was coming out closer, so as far as logistics go, that might be harder to get out the door than Ghost of Tsushima was. But then why is Iron Man VR delayed? Because that's after Ghost of Tsushima.
I don't know. Probably waiting for Ghost to be delayed.
Maybe there's something logically that doesn't necessarily track if you sit and think about it, though. Because if it's a logistics issue in a game before Ghost of Tsushima and after Ghost of Tsushima is getting delayed, then why isn't Ghost of Tsushima getting delayed?
I assume it will be, honestly.
Okay.
Because at this point, right, if you're a major video game company and you've been working on a title for a year and your plan was to push for a release for holiday 2020, with the virus concerns and all the isolation and all the shutdowns and all the lockdowns and everything else in place, what are your considerations on actually being able to get that game out for the proper holiday release window? Because I know that all this is supposed to blow over and blah, 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 and it's only April, but right now is when people would be starting to move
plans
into
for
crunch
November. Yeah,
overtime.
plans
That
for
happens
November.
now.
Plans for development, not development. Plans for actually get manufactured, because it's not like this. It's not like they go to a Sony factory. Well, sometimes they do, but a lot of times this shit's contracted out to an independent factory that builds whatever the fuck, and you have to get your slot in.
And all that has to be organized, and all that has to be prepped, and there's a
Like
lot
now.
of moving parts. And my honest concern or wonder is, what is the holiday season in gaming going to look like this year?
I don't know, but we didn't know what it was.
Are we just going to have like the world's most bitchin' February?
That's what I'm thinking. That's exactly what I'm thinking.
We're just going to move it. We're just going to postpone everything.
Because we didn't know. There's nothing planned. There was nothing planned even before all this stuff happened yet. It was all being kept under the hat. We assumed E3 was going to be the big rollout of, oh my god, here's all this shit
because
coming.
we don't really know a lot about like PS5 launches.
The gaming
is that thing
calendar,
even going to have launch games?
The gaming calendar ends in May. Yeah. Once May is done, there is nothing except like Cyberpunk in September.
Yeah.
There's nothing on the books.
They'll probably just release digitally.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what that means. That's their CD Projekt Red. That's their bread.
It's going to come out on GOG. We don't care. It'll probably come out on Steam eventually, but that's their whole move. They don't need to worry so much about physical space. So that's the big question to me. Is I think you're going to see a lot more delays. As mad as people are about this, I don't think this is the last we hear of major titles getting pushed.
I don't think so either. But this, to tie it back to this conversation what I was talking about earlier, though, if they know that it's a logistics thing, why hasn't Ghost of Tsushima been delayed yet either? And there's something about, I'm not going down the conspiracy.
It's a completely different studio.
Well, so is Ironman, isn't it? Ironman's not being developed by Sony, is it?
That's true. And I could walk around and go to work and do whatever the hell I want in Utah right now.
And
places are different. Is
Ghost of Tsushima, they're not saying it's a development studio thing. They're saying it's a publisher thing. They can't get the logistics behind it. So it doesn't matter if the game is done or not. They can't physically make the copies right now is what Sony is saying. So if you can't make the copies for Last of Us 2, you can't make the copies for Iron Man VR, why can't they not make the copies for Ghost of Tsushima, which is in between those 2 days? There's something like disconnect in the logic there for me.
I don't think it's limited to just the actual manufacturer of the physical discs that's causing this.
So you think there could be...
If that's your wonder.
Okay, so you think that there could be actually... They're like, fuck it, delay it, and just polish it up on the dev side as well.
Yeah, neither of these games are actually done.
Okay.
And that's why I was originally talking about how people can't really work on it from home.
And they're just saying... They're just kind of saying...
If you did that, then the game would just immediately leak.
So they're just saying that, hey, it's a logistics thing to kind of alleviate concerns that something's bad.
It's a issue of personnel logistics, and that the personnel are not working on the building.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a stretch, and you know it. When I read this, it sounds. Go ahead.
Bigger batches of bullshit from companies.
Yes, that's true. I have this. This seems so minor to nitpick on. But it's just that statement specifically. For some reason, I hear that, and it just fires off that.
Logistically is what bothers you? I saw this and went, yeah, they probably can't work on it, so they're going to delay it.
Yeah,
I immediately assumed that's what this meant.
And I'm not saying it's even like a logistic problem. That's not the issue. My problem is I hear that, and I don't even have a problem with it. I don't care if they delay the game or not. I just get the feeling it's more than a logistics problem why they're delaying both of these games.
Yeah.
And they're not saying that, though. They're kind of using the logistic problem as cover to go, we actually need more time on Last of Us 2.
That's the perfect excuse.
But it's not. It's one of those half-truth things that just stick in my craw. It's like, motherfucker, I know what you're doing. Just be honest with me.
Because
I could care less if they delay Last of Us 2 until next year. I'm still going to play it when it comes out. If they go, this game is not shaping up the way you want it to be, delay it until last year, I'm going to go, cool, awesome. Thanks. I'll play it in PlayStation 5 when it comes out. That sounds amazing. And just be honest with me. But there's something about that sentence right there that just does not make sense to me. But what the fuck do I know?
I feel like they can't just push it because too many people will be upset that it's going to just morph into a PS5 game when it was promised as a PS4 game. The only if we think about this, I'm sure we can think of something. Remember how I said about how like manufacturers need to have the people need to commission the time to actually print things at certain locations. Maybe they had that agreement for Ghost of Tsushima like last year. And they hadn't had it worked out for Last of Us because Last of Us got delayed. And I mean, they had to work that out and they couldn't fill in the gap anymore. I don't know. Yeah.
But just something about it feels weird. That's all I wanted to say. The point is, though, both of them are being delayed indefinitely. By the way, no official date on when either one of them comes out. David, why don't you go ahead and lead us off on this next story here, since you're the one that found it.
This is pretty fun. We got a couple different notices about this. First one's from Video Games Chronicle. Resident Evil 8 will supposedly release in 2021 with serious series departures. A first-person Resident Evil 8 will release in 2021 and feature serious departures from other mainline entries. That's according to info provided by credited insider Dusk Golem on Twitter and verified by Video Games Chronicle, which points to a release on current and next-gen consoles next year. Like 2017's RE7, the 2021 game will feature a first-person perspective and a return for the previous game's protagonist, Ethan Winters.
Now, I know that there was some debate on whether or not Resident Evil was supposed to go first-person or not, because there was, like, internally, they weren't sure if they're going to go stick with the first-person view or not.
Or go back.
Do you think it's a good idea for them to stick with the first-person view?
As long as they keep remaking the older games, I guess I'm fine with it. If first person is just the way Resident Evil's played now, I'll probably fall off. Honestly.
You know, with that, I was about to say this was a mistake, but you throw in the caveat as long as they keep remaking the old ones. I'm like, okay, that's because that is definitely filling that. I finished up Resident Evil 3 Nemesis on Monday.
Like if Code Veronica comes out,
that's what I hope they remake.
And it feels like RE2 and RE3 remake, do whatever the hell you want with RE8.
Yeah, it's definitely scratching an itch I haven't had in a long time.
And it's just RE8 and then RE9, and they're these first-person, Outlast games. I'm out.
Fair enough. Anyways, let's go back.
In the article, the game supposedly will feature many narrative and mechanical departures to the series, including hallucinations and insanity segments, as well as enemies based on mythical creatures such as werewolves. Okay.
I don't know how I feel about that.
That's just stupid. As revealed by Dusk Golem, the game was originally intended to be a third entry in Resident Evil spin-off series Revelations. However, following positive feedback from Capcom's testing department, it was decided that the game would be transitioned into a mainline installment.
I don't like that either.
Yeah, that's really spooky, actually.
Yeah, I am concerned about that because that always reeks of shoehorning a game into something that it shouldn't be because they're trying to cash in on the moment. Now, I have faith in Capcom at the moment. They are on a fucking tear I haven't seen Capcom be on since the Super Nintendo days.
Yeah, they're on a heater right now. And it's hard to fault them for whatever the hell they want to do.
Right.
But like weird mythical crap and werewolves and...
Resident Evil was always grounded in reality. And I know that sounds fucking stupid to say, given that it's Resident Evil.
But it was always like a virus and scientific in nature.
There was always a scientific name
and ridiculous. But it always stemmed back to like it's a corporation created targeted virus that makes shit mutate.
Exactly. Like even in Resident Evil 7 with the spooky like stuff going on there, it was because of a super powered element that was made in a lab.
Yes. When you get like werewolves and mythical creatures, makes me think fucking ghosts and vampires and whatever other dumb shit. I'm so out.
Yeah, I check out on that.
Man, I try not to be one of those assholes, but for me, that's hashtag not my Resident Evil. Like,
and you know, like, as dumb as that sounds, though, if they could explain it in the game as some rich asshole just felt like he wanted to create vampires and made a serum to turn people into that, I would be fine with this exception.
Yeah, this gives people these hemoglobin deficiencies.
It's the thank you for smoking thing. They need that one bit of science fiction dialogue to connect it all together, and then I go, there we go. Like, I enjoyed Resident Evil 7 immensely more when they finally tied it into the main. Like, I liked Resident Evil 7 and so on, but I was like, but this isn't Resident Evil. It's that hashtag not my Resident Evil thing that we're talking about. Yeah. Until the last 10% of the game, I went, this is amazing. I am all in on this now.
Yeah. A little bit of more potential news from biohazardcast.com, which is like a more fan site driven.
It's Charlie Intel for Resident Evil.
Yeah. In the past few months, we've had a lot of random information across our desks, possibly pertaining to a Resident Evil 8. Stuff reaches from the ridiculous to the highly plausible. To start, it seems likely that 8 will have a subtitle, this time Village. At least this is the working title. And there is a mock-up graphic that you can find that says Resident Evil Village, but the VI and L's are basically capitalized so that it's the number 8.
The Roman numeral 8. It's very similar to what they did with Resident Evil 7. Where they had like Biohazard out, but the letters in Biohazard were or was it Biohazard? They did something with Resident Evil 7 very similar to that, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head anymore.
Yep. Let's see. There's also supposedly like a witch-styled enemy, which I don't. This is more of the supernatural weird shit. The nature and origin of the witch remains to be seen, but the leaks can say that the witch will be sitter to Margaret. She operates with insects. When defeated, she dissipates them, and she's known to haunt the player and have a distinctive laugh. And I don't know, that's weird.
I can see how that's creepy, because you'll be walking down somewhere and all of a sudden you hear that laugh and you're like, oh shit, it's time to go.
Yep.
It's like the Mr. X footsteps in Resident Evil 2. It's like,
the part that's more interesting to me from this article is that according to the leak, Chris Redfield will be playing an integral part in 8, which is exciting because that ties old Resident Evil back into new Resident Evil in more than the way 7 did. He appears in flashbacks surrounding Ethan, Mia, and apparently their baby. What this baby has to do with the narrative is not yet clear. That being said, Chris does not seem to be looking very heroic this time around. It appears in a flashback sequence, Chris can be seen shooting one of them while breaking into their home, which sounds completely ridiculous. I heard a lot of different speculation online of what Chris could look like in this new game, if he's still going to be Bowflex Chris, or if we're going to get more of a return to form original stars Chris. I'm just saying, if he doesn't punch through boulders, what's the point? Why even bring him back? And we previously stated, based on our sources and others, that the game will take place in a European setting, which is where Ethan encounters Chris and triggers a flashback. So all that seems to still be in order from the previous rumors testing last year. Also, as of this time, it appears the first person perspective is still returning.
So important to note that these both come from 2 different video games websites, and that this is all considered rumor. However, multiple sources are confirming what other sources are saying.
Yes.
All anonymous.
They've been right before. A lot of this is likely. Some of this is maybe a little bit more fantastical. So I think the truth is that we're going to have another Resident Evil, which is a no-brainer. Why would they not do that? It's going to tie in more to the older games with possibly the inclusion of Chris. Again, very believable to me. We'll have some more fantastical elements in it. I don't know to what extent, but I could believe that just based on the departure that 7 started out as. And, we'll see.
We'll see how it shakes out. Also, one thing to keep in mind, while I do believe most of these rumors in this particular case, a lot of rumors are based on information that is dated. Video games change. Remember this, yes. If you were to believe what 100%. One of these leaks were, that this was supposed to be Revelations 3.
Yeah, so, that's true.
Shit changes. So regardless if this actually comes out or not in the way that they're talking about, doesn't mean that these people are wrong.
And maybe it'll still just release as Revelations 3.
Yeah, who knows? We'll find
and they'll
out.
tie that series over into the mainline series. We have no idea. All I know is please just announce a remake of Code Veronica. That's all I care about.
That's the one I want more. I don't need
more than anything else. I just want a new Code. I just want Code Veronica remade. I want that game to be given proper justice.
Same here. I don't want them to remake 4. I think 4 is good enough as it is. It still holds up to this day.
4 is a classic. 4 is the game that simultaneously broke the series out and broke the series.
Yes, it is a great game that killed the franchise.
Yeah, hilarious.
I know that sounds weird, but I don't want to spend 20 minutes fully explaining what I mean by that. But
it's the strongest of the new titles before the remake.
Oh, shit.
Before 7.
Resident Evil 4 is the Zelda Breath of the Wild of the franchise. Because every fucking Zelda after this was going to be like that. It is.
Is that I liked what happened in Resident Evil 4.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
David, while we're talking about remakes, let's go ahead and talk about this Final Fantasy VII remake, physical versus digital non-controversy that seems to be going on. I don't even want to say non-controversy because I get why people are salty about it.
People love being mad.
But it's my opinion of a reaction. Fair warning, I am not going to go into this with a level head at all.
All right. Cool.
Article from Eurogamer.net. Square Enix insists it will not release Final Fantasy VII Remake digital version early via Eurogamer.net. Square Enix has insisted that it will not release the digital version of Final Fantasy VII Remake early, despite the fact that physical copies are on sale now. Physical copies of the hotly anticipated remake are out in the wild ahead of the official April 10th, 2020 release date after Square Enix deliberately shipped them early in Europe and Australia amid the ongoing disruption case caused by the corona to ensure they reach fans by release date. This has caused a great deal of frustration for those who intended to download the game rather than buy it on disc, or those who have already pre-ordered via the PlayStation Store. Fans have called for Square Enix to push for digital launch button early, with the physical release in mind, but publishers have said it will not. From Square Enix itself. While we understand the frustration of seeing the game in sale for some locations, the bulk of our shipments and retailers around the globe are still scheduled to arrive in stores for our April 10th street date. Also, changing the digital release date at this point in time could therefore lead to logistical issues that could disrupt the digital launch for everyone. Therefore, we would be adhering to an April 10th digital release date. Thank you for understanding. David?
Yeah.
It's literally less than a week away.
This
Calm
isn't even
the
news.
fuck down.
This
people.
Doesn't even matter.
Games release at different dates in other countries all the fucking time.
Yeah.
You weren't ever spoiled by any of them. If you're really fucking terrified of Final Fantasy VII spoilers, and I get it, they're all over the fucking internet right now, but you know what you do? You don't go to Reddit. You stay the fuck off Twitter. You can explore the internet without clicking on either one of those two.
You can make it to Friday.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. You're most of the way there.
I get the extra wrinkle of Square Enix deliberately releasing it early as opposed to just some online retailer selling them early.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they did that so that people could get them on time, because if they didn't ship them then they might not have been able to ship them.
They might not get them for like weeks after.
Instead of this issue of some locations getting the physical game early and everybody else getting it on time, you would have had an issue of a bunch of people getting it on time and a ton of other people not getting it all or getting it late.
Yeah.
They chose to have some people get it early and everybody else get it when it released. At least they didn't charge you a $15 premium so that you could play it on launch day, and everybody else that paid full price had to suffer through a 5-day waiting period like some other companies like to do.
Fuck you, EA, because of that shit. I'm glad you brought that up, too. That was something else that was, like, sticking in my craw. I'm like, so...
Like, how can you be mad at this when fucking early access is a thing?
Yeah. How can you be upset that someone can pay $15 to play an EA game on Friday and everyone else has to play it on Tuesday?
Yeah.
I don't.
But this pisses you off.
Yeah, if this pisses you, let's finish the rest of that sentence. I think we were both like half saying that without coming to the conclusion.
If you're mad about this Square Enix thing and you're not mad about early access, you have bad priorities and you're a dumb human. That's all I got.
It's just one of those things I saw and I was just like, this is the dumbest non-controversy I've ever seen. But me if this didn't just light people's asses on fire.
That being said, I feel like if the world was real, this wouldn't be that big. Like if they had launched it early in certain regions and, everything was normal, I don't think the backlash would be as intense. Right now, people are stuck in their house with nothing to do. So why not get mad at Square Enix?
Now, in these people's defense, I will say, if it wasn't Square Enix, and if it wasn't specifically this particular fucking game, it wouldn't necessarily be having such hostility toward it, because Square Enix has been teasing and flirting with this game for nigh on 10 goddamn years now.
Yep. It's a game that everyone wanted.
Yes. And
it's a game that's going to sell gangbusters no matter when they release it.
You can only jerk someone off so long before they start getting tired of it and say, just fucking finish it already. And
yeah,
that's what's happening kind of here. So I get why people's frustrations are running high with this one in particular. But still, come the fuck on. Mm-hmm. It's all right. You're going to get it by Friday. Unless Square Enix somehow someone like DDoS the Sony servers or something like that, and it all goes down or something. David?
Yeah.
Did you watch the Inside Xbox thing earlier today?
Hell no.
No? All right. Then
anytime one of these things happen, I literally just read the snippet after the fact, because it's hard for me to sit down and watch these like smaller events. Like I can't even sit through a whole Nintendo Direct a lot of the time unless I know something big's happening. And even the last one, we suspected big things might happen, and I still didn't watch it.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I haven't looked at Hot Girl Video 69 yet. I don't know what hot new rumors she might be on top of.
Who knows, man?
I need to take a look at that. We'll find out.
Yeah, you have fun.
Back to what I was saying. Inside Xbox happened today. This is essentially Microsoft's version of a Direct or Sony State of Play. Yep. And it was a smaller one, but they had some stuff in here. They started off with Grounded. That's Obsidian's not Honey, I Shrunk the Kids game.
Yes.
That I thought was mainly going to be like a open world Survivor Fortnite thing. Apparently, there is a single player to it though,
Cool.
and they
Got
showed
a
off
whole campaign.
Yeah, they showed off a small bit of that. Small. It definitely has the voice, like whoever the scientist or narrator that shrunk your ass. It sounds like he is definitely the guy from Kids in the Hall, aka the dude that was in Vader Zim as one of the tallest. I can't remember his name. You would recognize him if you see him. He was the preacher from that '70s show, Preacher Dave or Dan or something like that.
Oh yeah, Pastor Dave.
Yeah, Pastor Dave. It's that guy. His voice is very recognizable.
That's
And he's
funny.
kind of giving you some backstory on what's exactly going on here. And it is coming early to access July 28th on Microsoft stores and PCs and all that, once again invalidating the need for me to own an Xbox, despite me owning one.
Yep.
Then they went to some tech stuff from the Xbox Series X. I mean, it's just a bunch of technobabble, and I kind of went, okay. And my eyes kind of started to glaze over.
They gotta say this. Sony said some stuff. We gotta say some stuff. That's how that goes.
David, a new Forza game's coming out.
No, it's not. There is no new Forza games releasing. Go fuck yourself. This is a bullshit mobile game coming to iOS and Android on May 5th called Forza Street.
And they also announced the date for Gears Tactics from the Coalition, April 28th. And this actually looks like it's going to be my jam. I'm
no
actually
joke,
kind
Gears
of excited
Tactics,
for this.
Gears Tactics look great. I like tactics games. I was never like Gears was always fun. I like Horde mode in Gears. It's got an interesting universe, but this game looks really fun actually.
Gears is one of those game franchises that I'm always aware of, and I'll play them eventually. I'll play through it once, usually co-op with a friend, and go, "That was fun," and then forget about it.
And then just wash your hands and be done with it. It's funny.
Gears Tactics, though, looks like something that I might be really interested in playing. And then remember what we said about once May hits, the video game calendar just dries up?
Yep.
So this actually could be something that helps me tide over May. Then you also had a new Sea of Thieves update coming out called Ships of Fortune. It's going to add trading companies, for the most part, new mysterious company known as the Reapers, etc. All your typical marketing speak, new Sea of Thieves update. I want to play this game one day, but I don't want to put any time into it. When I know it's a game for you to actually enjoy, you have to put the time into it, and I don't want to do that.
Oh, there's too many time sink games. There's too many games. There's too many games that want to be your only video game.
I got Satisfactory.
Right.
I don't, but it is on the list of things to do. And they also wound up having 3 little ID at Xbox games toward the end. First off, they showed off some of the last Campfire. This is Hello Games' new thing.
Still very interested, actually. I'm not out the door on that yet.
I am more interested in it because of who's making it than I am the game itself, which actually does not speak well for the game.
Fair. But yeah, Hello Games follow-up to No Man's Sky that looks absolutely nothing like No Man's Sky. It has nothing to do with it, doesn't play like it. It's a completely different video game.
I just want to see it because
I just want them to release it. I want the game to be competent. I don't even need it to be the best video game ever made. I want it to be a solid title that people enjoy, gets a little fan base, and is fun, because these guys have actually been working their ass off to try and turn No Man's Sky around.
Which is what I was wanting to bring up. When No Man's Sky came out, right before it came out, I remember looking at that game going, I don't think this is going to be what people think it is, because I knew what the scuttlebutt was. I knew people who already played it. They're telling me what's going on. I'm like, this is not what Sony's been hyping up. And when it came out, Hello Games could have just washed their hands of it and went, we're moving on to the next thing.
Sorry.
But they spent it's still getting updated to this day. From what I understand now, it actually plays close to how it was supposed to be promised as.
Yeah.
And
people really like that game.
I have to respect Sean Murray and the team there for sticking with it as long as they did. Because it could have been so easy for them to go, fuck this, we're out, we're changing our name, we're not Hello Games anymore, because that studio's name is tainted, and they didn't.
They've done a lot of work to try and build goodwill again, and that's why, for me, the best thing that can happen is this game comes out and it's solid.
That's exactly why I'm willing to take a look at it.
Yeah, I just want them to have a completely competent game, because I feel like they've kind of earned like a double, maybe a triple.
Yeah,
maybe they don't knock it out of the park, but
they have earned a mulligan.
Get on base for sure.
They are back to neutral with me again. Yeah. And at least I know that they're willing to put in the time to make something decent, even if it costs them a lot. Because you have to imagine, it's not like No Man's Sky was selling anymore after that big. It might be selling more now, but they're not financially incentivized to keep updating that game, I don't think. But I could be wrong on that. You also had Atomic Crops shown, and this looks like a Harvest Moon bullet hell on acid.
It looks so weird.
It is, you are a farmer in a post-apocalyptic setting. You are growing mutant fruit. You're getting married to mutant animals. It is my Mad Max with bestiality simulator that I've been waiting for all this time, David.
I mean, any game that controls like Smash TV is a win in my book, and this looks like it controls like Smash TV.
And then, speaking of Smash TV, finally, Hotline Miami Collection out now. Now, Hotline Miami really isn't like Smash TV, but it has that dual stick control scheme.
That's all I need. That and big money and big prizes.
David, I was never a fan of Hotline Miami, actually. It is not my
Really?
jam. Yeah.
Oh.
I never liked it. I'm not... It's not that I hate it, but I was not part of that zeitgeist when it came out. I was not on that hype train. I was just like, okay, yeah, it's a game.
I played the first one late and thought it was totally fine.
That's where I was at. It is a fine game. I do not need to play it.
It's fun. I didn't even beat it. I played it for, I don't know, however many hours I played it, and that was about it.
But when that game did first drop, that was just, for like 2 weeks, that's all people were talking about. It was fucking Hotline Miami.
What are you going to do, man? Smash TV, but make it super graphic. Give it a cool soundtrack.
Why don't you go ahead and lead us off on the next topic here, David, and then I will lead us with the last one.
This one's actually really fun from one of our often used video game news sources, The Hollywood Reporter. I'll sum up the entire article with the title. Call of Duty wins First Amendment victory over use of Humvees. This is actually pretty interesting.
It's actually interesting. Yeah, I didn't know this was
Call of Duty
even a
maker
fight.
Activision has prevailed in a closely watched trademark dispute brought by AM General, the government contractor for Humvees. You know, the guys that make those big giant steel trucks for the military, or, you know, former governors.
On Tuesday, governor's plural is correct because I'm pretty fucking sure Jesse Ventura also has one.
That's fair. On Tuesday, a New York federal judge responded favorably to Activision's argument that it had a First Amendment right to depict contemporary warfare in its game by featuring Humvees, because, you know, they're on the front lines and they've got all these other things. Quote from the judge: "If realism is an artistic goal, then the presence in modern warfare games of vehicles employed by actual militaries undoubtedly furthers that goal."
You know what's interesting about
Judge George B. Daniels.
You know what's interesting about a judge saying that is that the judge is essentially saying, yeah, you can use trademark things if it's meant to be historically relevant, or if the setting is relevant to the time, that if it's relevant to the time and setting of your movie.
Yeah,
so,
basically.
I'm not a lawyer, but this sounds like I can go, I am making a movie based on modern day. So I have every right, if someone comes in and they're playing a video game on TV, that I can be playing Call of Duty on that TV and not pay Activision anything.
Maybe, but I don't know. There's probably more arguments to be made about
I'm sure there is. This is a layman's interpretation of what I'm hearing here, but doesn't that sound like what he's saying?
It is a step in the direction for artistic license.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I'm actually a fan of that. I like when companies can do stuff, because then hopefully we can do stuff on occasion. Like, I'm not necessarily thinking of the next big giant AAA company that gets to use something without having to pay royalties. I'm thinking of us being able to put up a fucking Nintendo trailer and
not get flagged.
Because guess what? It's a thing that exists in the real world, and as someone who's here to tell people video game news, maybe we have a right to actually show the news.
Yeah, like, you know, your trailers that are putting out that are actually meant to be distributed.
That are publicly available and posted on various websites, and yet somehow small-scale news can't actually report on it. But that's a whole other argument.
I'm going to cut to the last paragraph of this article here, David, because I put in a lot of like unnecessary fluff on here because I wasn't sure how long we were going to go. But at the end, Judge Daniels acknowledges that there's strength in the plaintiff's mark. In other words, Judge Daniels is saying, hey, people recognize what a Humvee looks like, which is important in trademark. You can't trademark something ambiguous. It needs to be something that people look at and go, that's a Humvee.
Yes.
That's Michael Jordan's head. That's the Nike swoosh. That is the PlayStation logo.
Yeah.
And the judge is like, hey, Humvees meet that. People know what it is. But since they're not using the mark in the same way, for example,
Activision's not selling a car that looks like a Humvee.
Exactly. They're using it in a video game. So the mark is being applied differently.
At no point during Activision's use of a Humvee does it negatively affect Humvee sales or Humvee contracts, because honestly, who buys Humvees anymore anyway?
Which, from what I understand, is actually big in trademark law. There needs to be some sign that someone is using your intellectual property
to make money.
To make money or to confuse because that's how
Yes.
come
No
Nintendo
one
can...
is buying a Modern Warfare game because it has Humvees in it.
Right. And to counterpoint to that, that is why Nintendo is able to take down the another Metroid 2 remake people, because it is using the name Metroid, because it has Samus in it, and it can be actually confused for a Metroid game.
Yes.
That's not the case here, so that's what the judge is ruling here. Now, the judge did kind of give like a wishy-washy ruling on it, though, which does not decisively settle this stuff at all, because he is saying things like, hey, we recognize the mark.
It'll be right back next time there's something. But at least I think this is a step in what I consider to be the correct direction. So maybe we'll have more leeway the next time this shit comes up.
Yeah, I am in agreement as well for the most part. One thing to keep in mind, I want to get this disclaimer out of the way. Neither David nor myself are any legal experts at all. I used to watch a lot of SVU, and that's about the extent of my legal knowledge. David, I don't even know if I've seen a single episode of Law Order, so you might know.
Is that the one with Ice-T in it?
Yeah, it is the one with Ice-T in it.
Perfect. All I know about that is a skit from a comic on Comedy Central.
Well done, David. All right.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and let you have this one here, too, because you love Jason Schreier, and he has me blocked on Twitter because I dared to have a conversation with someone he doesn't like.
Get wrecked. This is from everyone's favorite video game website, Kotaku. More specifically from...
That's Jason a loaded Schreier. Statement.
I know. That's why I said it. More specifically from our often used source, Jason Schreier, a guy who knows his shit. And you can't really argue that. Sources, despite huge sales, Borderlands 3 developers are getting stiffed on bonuses. Hat tip to Captain Ice Cold from our Discord chat who brought this to our attention. The video game Borderlands 3 was a big sales success when it launched last year, according to its publisher 2K, which described it as a billion-dollar global brand. That's why it was shocking to employees at Gearbox, the developer of the game, when the studio's CEO, Randy Pitchford, told them yesterday, at the time of this article, this came out, I think, last Thursday, told them that they would not receive the significant royalty bonuses they expected.
So, I'm going to pause you right here.
So we can actually discuss how their bonuses normally work.
Yeah. David, before we get into the bonus situation, what do you feel about Randy Pitchford? Because I have this weird love-hate relationship with this guy, because I've met him in person a couple of times, and he has always been very warm and welcoming and affable to me. But then you hear all this shit behind the scenes. At the very least, I can say that he probably does his company more harm than good.
I think he's an idiot.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, that's fine. I mean,
like, I want to.
I've had pets that are idiots. You can still like them.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel him. I'm like, I want to like Randy Pitchford. He has this geeky energy about him.
I don't know that he should be doing what he's doing.
Yes,
but clearly good on him, I guess.
He clearly has like this weird zeal for Gearbox, which, hey, it's his baby. I get it.
And he likes magic.
But he does so much more harm to his company than good. That said,
if they just locked that guy in a room and shut him up all the time, they would be in probably better shape.
That said, I actually don't think he's fault at this.
I don't believe so. This is probably more upper management of 2K. Anyway, moving on to the article. Employees of the studio will get small bonus checks, but nothing close to the tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands that many had expected. This account is based on conversations with 6 people close to Gearbox, all speaking anonymously because they were not authorized to talk about what happened. Gearbox, which is based in Frisco, Texas, offers its employees below average salaries for the video game industry, according to more than a dozen current and former Gearbox staff who've spoken to Kotaku over the years. To make up for that, the studio offers something unique: profit sharing. Royalties from all the developers' games are split 60-40, with 60% going back into the company, while 40% is distributed to employees in the form of quarterly bonuses. So the way they built it is most of the time you make less than the average video game worker, but when we ship a game and it does well, you get a nice chunky bonus.
And Borderlands 2, for example, did gangbusters. People were getting like 6-figure fucking royalty checks from that.
Yes, and that's the important part, is that there's already like precedent from another game that sold very well from the company that made a lot of the employees a shit ton of money. Gearbox has been struggling, failing to find much financial success with flops like Alien Skull and Marines in 2013 and Battleborn in 2016. As a result, quarterly bonuses have been smaller in recent years. In 2020, this was supposed to change. Several Gearbox employees told Kotaku that company management promised them 6-figure bonuses following the launch of Borderlands 3. The more years they'd been with the company, the larger the check. Then, in a meeting, Gearbox boss Randy Pitchford told employees that Borderlands 3 bonus checks would be significantly lower than they hoped, according to 3 people who were present. He said the game had been more expensive than expected. The company had grown significantly larger than it had been in the past, since it did open the second studio in Quebec, and that their sales projections had been off base, which is weird because the game made like a fucking $1 billion. The game sold very well. We expect lifetime Unix sales to be a record for the series, said Strauss Zelnick, CEO of 2K, the parent company of Take-Two, on an earnings call in February. But it cost way too much to make. One large factor was the technology swap we'd make through development from the Unreal Engine 3 to UE4, which added a great deal of time to the project. In addition, before Gearbox could receive any royalties from publisher 2K, Borderlands 3 would have to recoup not just the game's entire budget, which is around $95 million, but also the budget for all the DLC, so it makes it some closer to 140 million, thanks to a contract that the two companies had signed. That being said, the game still made like $1 billion.
This is I don't know how much the game itself made, but this definitely falls into the problem that Bioshock Infinite had. Another Take-Two game. Bioshock Infinite sold a shit ton of copies, but it also took like 7 fucking years to make, went way over budget. The marketing was insane for it. And by the time it was all said and done, 2K went, Bioshock is not a profitable game for us. We are not going to rush out another one after this. And that's why Ken Levine, for the most part, went, I'm creating my own smaller studio, and decided not to make another Bioshock. This is what happens when a publisher and a developer run wild with a budget, go overblown, think they're a Hollywood movie, and spend hundreds of millions of dollars to make a game. It's the whole EA Dead Space thing again. Dead Space 3 was so fucking expensive to make. EA was like, it needs to sell 5 million copies to break even. What the fuck, EA? It's a horror game. It's going to sell 2 to 3 million copies, period.
Yeah. It's a little bit hubris. It's a little bit mismanagement. It's a lot of bullshit. And if I was at 2K, I would probably just leave and get a new job.
Well, remember, 2K is just a publisher. It's not Gearbox.
Sorry. Gearbox. Yeah.
And
but that's still bullshit. You're working at a company that specifically has you making less than any other company on the promise of bonuses. This is Christmas Vacation.
Yeah. It is. And
except for the entire company just got Christmas Vacation.
Here's the thing. Are they
not right around the time when everybody's broke?
Are they not getting 40% of the royalties like they were promised?
We don't know.
From what I understand, they are. It's just that number is significantly lower because profit of the game is so much lower, and they expanded ridiculously large to finish up Borderlands 3.
If they release all the numbers, then fine.
Yeah, and every time you add someone...
Not to me, I don't need to know them. I don't give a shit. But if the employees know, like, hey, here's how much the game made, here's how much the split is.
Yeah. If everyone's still getting 40% of the revenue, that is what they signed on the dotted line.
Yes, but if they're getting less, then this is some bullshit.
But that's not what this article is alluding to. This article is just saying people are getting sick of short courses. The one thing that you can lay directly at Randy Pitchford's feet is if this statement is in fact true. Where was it? Several Gearbox employees told Kotaku that the company management promised them 6-figure bonuses following the launch of Borderlands 3. Now,
that's the big one.
That's
if they were
right there.
Promised those bonuses, then they get them. Period.
Well, it depends on when they promised them. It depends on the details of how they promised them.
If they said it in the elevator, you're fucked.
Yeah. Not only that, but if they said based on sales of Borderlands 2, and this was when, say, Borderlands 3 started in development 7 years ago, they go, we expect it to make this much money. This is what you should get out. See, that's the problem when you use these anonymous resources. You don't know exactly the context of what this is saying. Now, I am not trying to be a Randy Pitchford defender here, because I think that dude is actually poisonous to Gearbox as a studio as a whole.
Well, I also think the management of Gearbox is a joke.
Well, that's Randy Pitchford.
It's
for the most part all Randy Pitchford at this point, from what I understand.
There's a bunch of other people who work there too.
But this is one of those cases where people are trying to spin this as an anti-Randy Pitchford story, and it's like, that's not kind of what's going on. For example, people are saying, but he paid him out a $16 million bonus to himself last year, according to Wade Calendar's lawsuit. It's like, yeah, that bonus came from the 60% that was in the contract designed to go to the company. That's not coming from the mouths of employees.
Yeah, that's true. But how many employees they have, and how much, if he got 16 million, and that's a chunk of the 60% that goes to the company, because I'm assuming he didn't get all of the 60%, how much more is left over?
That's a good point.
right?
How many?
If some amount of the 60% is $16 million,
Mm-hmm.
how much is the 40% worth? How much is 10%? Did he get 10 and that was 16 million bucks? Or did he
How
get
much?
50 and that's 16 million bucks?
How much, or how many more people did they add?
Yeah, and
how many
these are
studios
all
did they open up?
that we don't have any answers for. It's mostly speculation. You can be mad at whoever you want to be mad at. I'm going to blame the people in charge and just sheer unadulterated mismanagement,
Right.
which
And keep in
seems
mind,
to be a staple of Gearbox.
Keep in mind two things. One, they did open up a second studio in Quebec. If that studio is just as large as the studio in Borderlands is, by definition, everyone's bonus check will get cut in half.
Yep, because you're going to 20% of the total, because the other half has to go to the other studio.
Also, these agreements would have been signed like 5, 6, 7 years ago, whenever the agreement for Borderlands 3 was agreed on. And I know for a fact this game has been developed for a long time.
Yeah.
I
remember, unless there's
remember
dollar figures, like specific dollar amounts in those agreements, and it's all percentage based, then I mean, if they can show you the numbers, then you're kind of screwed.
Yeah. And that is why you should never work for a fucking company on the illusion of making it big. You go, no, I want straight cash, and then we can talk about maybe give me 20% royalties or something like that.
Yeah.
Always take the guaranteed money over the promise of money.
Unless you're George Lucas, and then definitely sign the line for the toys.
Yeah, but at that point, you have your lock, stock, and barrel in charge of the entire thing. Do you see what I'm saying? That's everyone hears the royalties and go, I'm going to be George Lucas. I literally, we talked about this recently.
I'm just making a joke.
I know a guy who gets a royalty check every like month for like $15.28, and he has no idea where the fuck he's getting it from. But that's how much some of these royalty checks are. It's not necessary. Like, it's on its. I love the idea that on its face, it's like, hey, 40% of everything we sell after profits. That did buy people some houses.
Yeah.
And when the company is small and lean, that's a good thing. That's a good thing to buy. When the company is small,
300 employees.
Yeah, if you double how many people are working for you and it sells just as good, you're getting half that money.
Yeah. 300 employees, and then you make 20 grand, and then you have to split it based on seniority. Maybe it's not a lot.
Yeah. It is shitty, especially if you're expecting that money, but I don't necessarily blame this at the feet, in this case, of Pitchford and Gearbox. This is one of those things.
I still blame Gearbox. I just don't blame Pitchford specifically.
I lean up. Fair enough.
Because there is incompetence involved in this.
Yeah. Especially if you're promising people, hey, this is going to be big, and it turns out that's not.
Yeah.
David?
Yes.
If there is a Borderlands 4, I expect that game to take another 7 years to make.
Probably.
And I don't even know if I'm going to play it, because I thought Borderlands 3, while fun, just showed me how over I am with that franchise.
Yeah, that was a very, early 2010s game.
Yeah, it was a flash in the pan. I went, okay, cool. I've moved on beyond this. But
it's got a bazillion guns. How are they going to get bigger?
Hey, 4 might be great.
How many teraflops of guns they got?
We won't know for a long time.
Yeah.
In the meantime, how can I keep myself occupied before Borderlands 4 even gets officially announced, let alone released?
All right, we got a couple of things coming out. One thing that you're probably going to play.
I'm so excited for
you
this.
Play all of these fucking games. Disaster Report 4, Summer Memories, comes out this week for Switch, PS4, and PC.
An objectively bad game.
Yes, it is a third-person adventure survival. You like it. I don't really care for it. It's a game about managing disasters. It's now in VR, which is exciting.
For the PlayStation 4. I don't know about Switch and PC.
It's probably in VR and PC, right? Why not?
I think it's PSVR exclusive on it. That's why.
Oh, is it? That's weird.
I could be wrong.
You're going to play it anyway.
Yeah, I fully actually plan on streaming this. Disaster Report 4 is an objectively bad game in the same way EDF is an objectively bad game. But for some reason,
it's dumb fun.
I enjoy it. In this case, like in the first one, it was like a tidal wave at Japan. You're trying just to survive in the ruins of Japan. On this one, it's an earthquake. This game was actively canceled because it was scheduled to come out when the tsunami when the earthquake happened and caused the tsunami that wiped out the Fukushima, I think, reactor in Japan.
Yep. Yeah, it was canceled around then.
Yeah, and they eventually brought it back. And it's been in Japan for like a year or 2 years, and then they finally localized it. I'm really looking forward to playing this one, despite knowing that it is going to look like an early PlayStation 2 game.
Yeah, who cares? Also out this week, Convoy, a tactical roguelike. PS4, Xbox One. It's been on PC for a long time. It's a roguelike like, I don't even know what the fuck that's supposed to mean, inspired by Mad Max and FTL, in which you cross a wasteland and search for parts for your broken ship. Presented in pixel art and set in a future post-apocalyptic setting, Convoy is a squad-based tactical combat roguelike. God, I just hate descriptive video
I
game
remember
art.
playing Convoy when it first came out on PC. It's
It's a 2D top-down strategy game that has a little bit of like FTL-inspired randomness, but the aesthetic is more Mad Max.
Yeah, it's I. That's about all as I can say on it.
It's a game. Dominant, but with an apostrophe and then ant because there's an ant in it.
It's an amazing name.
It comes out on PC this week. This is a more tongue-in-cheek, funny action-adventure game. It's a confrontation between Gerard, an alcoholic in his 40s, hilarious already, driven by loneliness in his dilapidated house, and Cassandra, the ant who will do anything to reduce it to ashes. This is like a weird-ass Tom and Jerry game where I think most of the time you're playing as an ant and you're trying to terrorize this guy who's an old alcoholic who's down on his luck. Sounds just classy. It sounds perfect to play in isolation. Also out this week, Sharknado VR Eye of the Storm comes out on PSVR. This has been out on Steam, I think, forever. It's a VR cash-in for Sharknado. It's 100% a wave shooter. You fight your way through swarms of hungry flying sharks. You slice them with a chainsaw. You shred them with machine guns. You shoot them with an RPG. You stand in the spot. Sharks come at you. You kill the sharks. It's fun for however many minutes you think that's fun. Braveland Trilogy comes out for PS4 and Xbox One. This is a turn-based game inspired by old-school strategies with a hexagonal battlefield. Story takes place in a hand-drawn world and covers many interesting places and characters. Various warriors will join your army: archers, scouts, healers, footmen, arbalasters. I just wanted to get to the part.
Do you know what arbalist is?
Yeah, dude, it's like a big old crossbow.
Yeah.
It's a 2D tactics game, though. I don't care for the art style, but all 2D tactics games and 3D tactics games deserve to exist, and so does this one. Also, this week, Tharsis comes out on Switch. This has been on Steam for a long time. I think you actually played it back in the day.
Long time ago. I enjoyed it. It's a dice game, oddly enough.
Yes, it's like a strategy board game where you're trying to like keep your crew alive in a sci-fi setting, but most of the time shit goes bad.
I would
die a lot.
If you're familiar with board game terminology, I would say this is very close to a push your luck style dice game.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, keep people alive, do your best. It comes out on Switch, have fun. And then there's one last little thing coming out this week. It's Final Fantasy VII Remake out on PS4. You've probably heard of it. Reviews are out at this time. People seem to like it. It is very pretty. The music, anytime I watch a gameplay clip, makes me emotional because, it jumps me back to 1997. And that was a minute ago. So
it is getting between 9s and 10s all over the place.
Yep.
People who have played the original are more or less saying that this is amazing. They are blowjobbing this game left and right.
Yep.
I deliberately was not looking at anything on this game until about 2 weeks ago. And I'm glad that I did not look at it. And I'm not talking like spoilers. I'm talking like just trailers and general hype. Because as we get closer and closer to this game, the more and more excited I get for it. Now, I played the demo back at PAX, and I was like, okay, this actually plays way better than I thought it was going to. But I was able to kind of file it away in the back of my head and forget about it. But as the reality that this fucking game is finally coming out on this Friday, I am starting to crave it in a way that I didn't think I would.
You know what's funny? Is I am excited officially for Final. I'll put that on the record. I'm excited for Final Fantasy VII.
High praise for you because you don't get excited for much. I don't even mean that in a snarky way. You have very specific genres that you get excited for, but for big blockbuster games, you tend to be like, I'll get it on sale.
But the problem for me, because of course I have one, is that while I'm excited to play Final Fantasy VII, the thing that makes me excited is revisiting the world and getting back into the story and diving into the lore, because I guess a lot of the localization issues have been fixed and it's a lot more comprehensible than it used to be. But what I'm not excited for, as weird as this sounds, is to actually play it. Because
any reason why? And I totally thought you were going somewhere else with it.
I played the demo. I did.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think that game is fun.
Okay.
Just flat out, I did not enjoy the combat system. I did not think it was interesting. The boss just felt like a big old bullet sponge to me. I mean, the stun mechanic, the weird party management mechanic, it's It's Final Fantasy 15.
From what I
It's Final Fantasy
understand,
12. It's the stuff that I don't really care for. I'd rather just have a straight action game or give me a regular RPG. I don't need this weird mismatch hybrid bullshit because I don't like it. I don't know what it is. People love it. People are all about it, and people are really excited. I really like the universe. I really like the way the game looks. I love the music. I want to explore it. I just don't really want to fight anything.
from what I understand, David, you're not the only person that shares that concern, and they all and I bitch about it when this has to happen in games. But apparently, after like say the first like 5 or 6 hours of it, that shit becomes like second nature, and it all of a sudden just clicks.
I mean, sure, but I mean, I just don't know that I want it to click.
I think my biggest worry is I'm going to be finally getting into it, and then it's just going to fucking end on a cliffhanger.
Yeah,
And
because
then
you know it is. Because
yeah.
you're gonna know everything that's coming the whole damn time because you played this fucking video game before 20 years ago. And so you'll be like, oh, that's this thing again. Oh, that's this thing again. Oh, that's this thing, but a little more fleshed out. Okay, that's cool. And then guess what? Midgar's over. And you, regardless of the fact that this is still like a 40, 50-hour game, you are
by all
of the way
reports, it's
through
taking people
the
30
first
to
video
40%, 30 to 40 hours by all reports.
Yeah. And even with that, you are a 10th, 5th.
And I'm still super salty that not only do we not know when the next one is coming out, but how many more they're going to be.
We have no idea. It's not even announced. It's not even in the pipeline. We don't even have a rumor. Yeah. This game took, 4 years from that first PSX reveal to now? Maybe 5?
I think it's been longer than that, but yeah, it's been rumored for a while.
And we're finally getting it. We don't even have snippet of what the next turn. I mean, obviously they wouldn't give away a phone. Maybe in the summer. Oh, Final Fantasy 7 2. Because that's the other question. What the fuck are they going to call the second one? Because this is Final Fantasy 7 remake. It doesn't have part one.
David. I would love to let you keep going on this rant, but you are starting to break up and fizzle out really hard. So let's just go ahead and wrap up the show right now before I lose you completely. This has been GamePoints episode 213. Thank you all for showing up. If you like what you see here, you know what streamers want. Likes, bits, follows, subscribes, etc. If you want to be part of the greater GamePoints community, you can join the Discord server down below. You can, of course, join the conversation next week because we do this every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here at twitch.tv/GamePoints. But if you can't join us live, you can join us over on youtube.com/GamePointsPC. Regardless of where you're at, feel free to join in the conversation, as I said, of questions, comments, concerns, etc. You can follow the show on Twitter at GamePointsPC, myself at Stephen Brown at Capitalist21, and David there at Palshife_Satori. I will be back streaming just regular games for the rest of the week, mainly Disaster Report 4 and maybe even some Final Fantasy 7 if it launches on Thursday night like I'm hoping it is. But given that it's Sony, probably Friday morning. Thank you all for showing up. One final time, this has been GamePoints, and until next time, we're out of here.